we should be at our professional peak if we're in perimenopause or menopause in our 40s and 50s. And it's like maddening and baffling as to why suddenly we can't remember the word paperclip. Like, it doesn't, like, what is wrong with my brain? And we're so, I think, as latchkey kids, as Gen X, so I think inclined to blame ourselves and to take responsibility, which is part of, I think, maybe an issue with Gen X. It's maybe not our fault this time at fucking all. And so we don't have to take the heat. We don't have to take responsibility for this. They fucking did this. We're not victims. We're fucking survivors of a crime.
This episode of Transforming 45 is proudly sponsored by the National Menopause Show, happening October 17th and 18th at the International Center in Mississauga. The National Menopause Show is where science meets sisterhood, a trusted, inspiring, and genuinely fun weekend for anyone navigating perimenopause and menopause. You'll hear from leading experts, discover the latest research and wellness solutions, and connect with a community that truly gets it. Get your tickets at nationalmenopauseshow.com and use my exclusive code Transforming45 and come as my guest. Can't wait to see you there. Welcome to Season 4 of Transforming 45. I'm your host, Lisa Boate, and this season we're stepping fully into our power. The heat, the hormones, the heartbreak, the healing. This is midlife, raw and redefined. Each episode, you'll hear stories of humans who are rewriting the rules, reclaiming their bodies, their desires, their voices. This is where we stop shrinking, start shining, and remember who the hell we are. Because midlife isn't a crisis, it's an awakening. Let's get transforming 45. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Transforming 45. Menopause has spent decades trapped in whispers, euphemisms, badly outdated medical advice, and Alicia Rose is here to turn that whisper into a primal scream. Alicia is an award-winning filmmaker, photographer, musician, and the creative force behind Menopunks, the documentary, podcast, and growing movement using punk rock rebellion to expose misinformation, challenge medical gatekeeping, and demand hormonal justice. Alicia, this is like salve to every Gen X woman's heart and soul. I am so glad you're here today, and I've really been looking forward to this conversation. Welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, Lisa, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here and happy to rep for Gen X any day, anytime, anyway.
Before Menopunks was a film or a movement, what was it that really made you realize, oh, this is bigger than just my body?
Great question. Yeah, right. I think it all starts with each one of us realizing what the fuck is going on with my body. And that certainly happened to me. You know, I'm 56. It really started happening. Now I understand in my 40s, but the worst of it for me was in my early 50s. And it was definitely a very dysphoric adventure, which I think it is for many people, and especially Gen X who were caught in the web of COVID and what we thought was long COVID and, you know, being shut in while like feeling worse than ever. You're like, I'm just, you know, jamming Welch's snacks into my mouth. That's not perimenopause. It's fine. It's fine. You know, then I realized that, oh, I think this is actually perimenopause and potentially menopause. I wasn't sure what was going on. And I went and saw the doctor and I tried to get help and she wouldn't help me. And so I thought, well, hormones, I'm willing to take the risk if there's a risk, right? At that point, I didn't know what was going on with anything. And she said, well, you just keep suffering. I mean, she didn't say that, but I have a female doctor who's just like, come back when you feel worse. I was like, what do you mean? I feel shitty right now. So I did the thing. I did all the herbs. I did black cohosh, ashwagandha. I had 30 fans around the house. I was like, this is my life now. Okay, doctor won't help me. And then one day I just, you know, like the rest of us, got served a bunch of content on the couch sweaty. And I thought I was like, oh, so wait, I think I know what I need. I tried to self-diagnose and figure out what I needed. And then I went to Kaiser Telehealth and got an appointment with some random dude on telehealth and asked for exactly what I wanted, or at least what I thought I wanted at the time. And I got it. And so then suddenly I had a prescription for HRT, but then eventually I realized I had the wrong progesterone. I didn't have micronized progesterone. I have hydroxyprogestin acetate, which I was really reacting badly to, but I didn't know what that would look like. And then I eventually got optimized, as we call it, last March, right as I was launching Menopunks and like starting to film all the things. And then during the course of that, I wound up getting hormonally radicalized by one her cadre of incredible Gen X doctors here in Portland who really opened my eyes to the absolute fucking nightmare that we are truly in terms of Gen X and the whole world. All of women, anybody AFAB being in this wild hormonal crisis. And it's not just personal anymore, it's political, right?
Yes, absolutely. It was really interesting. I had been meaning to send you a message for like months, but a friend of mine sent me the Menopunk's trailer and she said, take a look at this. What do you think? And what do you think about the emphasis on hormones?
Mm.
And I had this moment of, right, when you live in menopause world, you forget that there's still so much prevailing wind telling women that hormone therapy is dangerous, that it could have negative impacts, and that there's like this narrative still is so fully around it. So what are you finding to be most effective in communicating with women and helping them to understand what will actually help them to feel better?
You know, it is really a crisis of the echo chamber that we're dealing with. And I think, yeah, if you're a doctor, you're like, of course we know. But even the doctors I talk to, especially Dr. Aoife O'Sullivan, who's here in Portland with me and a dear friend, and really the doctor that hormonally radicalized me. She's brilliant. Her husband is an oncologist. So she's really ensconced in the whole thing and was really suffering during her perimenopause, which radicalized her. She's so brilliant. She really went down the rabbit hole and was like, oh my God. So you know, finding out from her was very enlightening for me. And I think understanding the stakes of where we are at and the cost of what we as an entire gender and a gender expansive gender have suffered, not just personally, but politically, societally, creatively, culturally. I mean, my brain just started to melt and I started thinking, oh my God, this is actually a crime that happened to all women. And we're like slow motion sleepwalking through it because we don't really understand how incredibly mind fucked we got. And
Uh-huh.
and the evil is so prevailing. And it really reminded me of now. And as we started getting into the Trump era and all these fucking assholes just destroying our consciousnesses every single day, I started making these connections and I thought to myself, oh God, this is maddening. I'm losing my mind. What would Nico Case think about this? Like, what would Pat Benatar, like, what do the rock stars think? Because I'm a musician. I come from the world of music. I have a long history in the music business. I've also made music videos and photos and all these other things, collateral for musicians. I've collaborated with them for years and years and years. And I'm also deeply, wildly, very clearly Gen X as fuck, right? So, and I know myself, and by knowing myself by proxy, I feel like I kind of know Gen X, especially not just as myself, but having had to make art and stuff for Gen X in a way I use sort of other people's creative missions go through my vision, and then I create something that everybody hopefully loves. And I've had pretty good luck so far. But I had this revelation. It's just my own thing that I would say to people all the time that I realized really applied to Menopunks and the mission that I was going to have, which is that Gen X women specifically don't like to be sold to, marketed, or told what to do. So if I, as an activist, was going to make a difference in helping people at least understand that we had been lied to. I mean, whatever they do, hormones not, that's up to them. But to understand that we were actively fucking deceived by a bunch of fucking assholes, just like the ones we're dealing with right now, I think we'd have thoughts.
Yes, it's a really interesting convergence in time, right?
Mm,
Because it is being laid bare to us
mm,
on many
exactly.
levels, just how indoctrinated, brainwashed we were,
Well,
and
yeah,
how painful that realization is now.
yeah.
As we recorded, it's 4:30 p.m., so my own word recall is like in the toilet at this time of day.
She needs a new patch. Slap it on while we're on the podcast. That's the way we roll at Menopunks.
Yes. So I can't remember the name of the creator right now, but was saying like there's also this grief around who would we have been
Well, I think we as Gen X actually have the chance to sort of stave that loss. And that's really why I even started Menopunks at all. Because I mean, we're the sandwich generation, right? Like we're taking care of some of us taking care of kids and our parents. And I got to tell you, I am seeing a fucking shit show unfold in Boomerland in my own life right now with a stepmother that was hospitalized near death with chronic UTIs leading to sepsis. My mother who's had issues with her heart, with breast cancer. I mean, who knows what would have happened if she had access to hormones, you know? So it's endemic with their entire generation, and they're bitter. They don't know why, and they're taking the world down with them, right? But I think that Gen X, and with that, even the lost generation, the young boomers, we have a chance to fucking fix it. And we are really the only ones that can, because we are the no nonsense fucking latchkey kids that know how to make mac and cheese in the microwave. We can support ourselves. We can get through the window if we lose the key. Like we know how to deal. And I think that, we have been all of the women, if you think about the Trump era, especially like perimenopause started for a lot of us around 2016 or 2015 or in that zone, and we didn't really know what was going on. Our mothers told us bupkis, nothing whatsoever. And we just kind of had to, figure it out. Was it long COVID? Was it just going crazy? Did I have hip cancer? Do I need a hip replacement? Am I just losing my teeth because I'm old? I don't know. Like brain fog. Am I sweating because I'm fat? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to understand what's going on with my body. And I think it really hit us all like this massive whammy, but we can change it. So I actually feel very optimistic because, I really started putting those things together and I was like, well, going through rock stars was my way, because I'm a musician, of really being able to model not just the care that we deserve, but the experiences that we all have, that we all might share with every other person. No matter if it's Pat Benatar or you or me or somebody else, like this is going to happen to every single woman and person assigned female at birth, one way or the other, whether it's induced by a hysterectomy or happens naturally when you're 55, 45, 65. I mean, everybody's different, right?
And what do you think it is about music, particularly for our generation, right? There is a very strong cultural tie for all of us. It's like one of the only things in this crazy time that we're living in that actually soothes my nervous system, right? Like when Motley Crue hits the airwaves, I'm like, yeah, okay.
Well, you're a metal girl. This all makes sense. I was like, your hair feels a little sort of metal to me, just a little bit. Like you probably were you a headbanger? Was that your vibe?
No, actually, like I actually run the whole spectrum from like Bon Jovi to like, I was at the original Lilith Fair, right? So,
oh my God, shout out to Lilith.
Yes.
Well, you ask a good question, and I've thought about it a lot because I'm a huge fan of music. I'm a musician, and on top of being a musician, I'm also a former music promoter. I booked clubs from the early 90s forward. I also ran a music distribution company for over a decade, and then I came back to booking clubs in Portland. I was the founding booker at a place called Doug Fir Lounge here in Portland and another venue called Mississippi Studios. I was a college radio DJ. I mean, look, as much as I'm a musician, that always felt like a side gig to being a music lover. And I think my fandom and all of Gen X's fandom, it's all kind of connected because we, as a generation, I think define ourselves by the art we love, support, or make. And that's just really different than millennials because they don't have it as we're like the last analog generation, really. We connected with things. We had to find them and we fucking love them. And they helped us define ourselves in this way that I get chills thinking about it. That was foundational to who we are. So I think that now, bringing it to the nightmare of now, we are living suddenly in this like stupid asshole fascist nightmare hell spiral of I'll say stupidity again because they deserve to. Boobs, and not even the good boobs, just absolute phone-headed boobs. It's just so incredibly frustrating. But I think that there's so much censorship and there's so much limitation to what we are. I mean, they're trying to now combine all the film companies into one, which will, for example, like destroy creativity in a sector that is the majority of the things that we're used to seeing, taking away all the diversity, all the fun, all the goodness, and just smashing it into boring beige smithereens. But music can't, I mean, yes, there's AI, but it's pretty obvious when it's AI. And for the
Yes.
most part, music has been, and will always be the truest form of expression that there is, because the song that comes out of somebody's fucking mouth, out of their soul, is the real deal. And so, Bob Dylan affected change in the Vietnam War with his music,
Yes.
and the list goes on. There's tons of people that have affected change with their music of all kinds. We Are the World, if you go into the benefit zone, like, musicians have a different kind of power, and yet they're incredibly relatable. And I've been in the unique position, frankly, to know a lot of them and to be one. It's just a
Yeah.
normal zone for me. And because I've worked with so many rock stars and, like having to figure out what kind of music video they want to make or whatever, like what their photos going to look like. I collaborate with them. I just have zero intimidation whatsoever. So I feel like I'm a good messenger or a good investigator, I guess, or whatever it is, host of a podcast, I don't know, but a good spelunker into the zone with them, because I am one of them and I relate to them on a very clear level. And I love inviting people into those conversations, because I think it's rare to get to hear somebody's story. And I always wondered, like, I saw Peaches not too long ago. Peaches, brilliant Canadian, amazing artist who I'm completely obsessed with. She's like, I'm 59 and I'm, she's like on people's heads in giant sneakers. And I'm like, is she on HRT? Like, I went to the show and all I could think of was like, she's got to be on HRT. There's no way she's 59 and taking those chances if she has osteopenia or osteoporosis. So I finally got to talk to Peaches on the podcast. And of course I got to ask all the questions. And yes, she's on HRT, but she was not using vaginal estrogen. And I was like, well, let me tell you something. So I'm finding that not only am I able to get their stories and relate to them and talk about whatever, but somehow I'm actually helping them. Like I'm sort of hormonally radicalizing these rock stars inadvertently. I'm not thinking they're not going to know. I'm just talking to them about where they're at, what they're doing. But I'm also, in a way, sort of de facto, non-professionally, Lucy, give her 5 cents from peanuts, counseling them, on just as a friend about what I did, what I've heard people are doing, what the doctors have said, telling them which episodes to listen to or whatever. So that keeps being this insane, for me personally, amazing bucket list byproduct of this Menopunks adventure.
Yeah. There are very few things that I say specifically, like, you must do this. Vaginal estrogen, however, is one of them.
Oh my God. Everybody get it together. Smear that shit around. Throw away the applicator.
Yeah. Vaginal estrogen and vitamin D. Those are the two, like, these are necessary. I am Canadian. So and you are also, you're in an environment where you don't get a ton of sun either.
Yeah.
Those two things are really, really necessary. So I just wanted to reiterate that for people who maybe haven't heard the message, but vaginal estrogen can save your life.
Look, my stepmother, who was just in the hospital with chronic UTIs, genital urinary syndrome is what it really is, GSM. Genital urinary syndrome of menopause. I think that's what it's called. She eventually got prescribed vaginal estrogen. She's in her late 70s. And I mean, eventually. And it was because she almost died. I mean, what the fuck is that? That is malpractice is what it is. And we're just not even seeing it for what it is, which is what drives me bananas crazy.
So what are the themes that you are hearing from the stories of the musicians that you are talking to? Because I think that can really help to inform how we're moving through this time and moving forward.
Yeah, well, I think from the ones that are a little on the older side, like I just talked to Alice Bagg and Frank, the original lesbian folk singer, and Alice Bagg from the Bags. So the folks who are more lost generation, young boomers, seem to almost always have this experience of just being told no, or being pulled off of hormones, or denied. Or in Pat Benatar's case, she just was like, I'm not touching anything that's anything near a pharmaceutical, and sort of just was functioning off of the misinformation for all this time. So part of it is just the absolute crushing bummerness of people like, Deborah Ayal from Romeo Void and all of these folks just really not getting the message. So that's hard, right? From that level. And then the younger ones, almost all of them, like me, had issues. They're either in one camp where they had issues not being heard by their doctor, or had symptoms they could not understand. And their stories are almost always really dramatic. Like one theme, I swear to God, almost every time I talk to somebody about their real story of perimenopause and menopause, they talk about how they felt they were dying. And that felt was a very common theme. I was like, that's so sad. And I felt it too. I was like, I've got hip cancer. I'm dying. Like, you feel so bad and you don't know why. Why is death like the first thing that comes to mind? It's so sad.
Or dementia is the other one. I have yet to have facilitated a session where someone doesn't come to me at the end and say, Lisa, I just thought I was in the early stages of dementia.
That's another really good one. And it's so true, because I think that we are now, in theory, we should be at our professional peak if we're in perimenopause or menopause in our 40s and 50s. And it's like maddening and baffling as to why suddenly we can't remember the word paperclip. Like, it doesn't, like, what is wrong with my brain? And we're so, I think, as latchkey kids, as Gen X, so I think inclined to blame ourselves and to take responsibility, which is part of, I think, maybe an issue with Gen X. It's maybe not our fault this time at fucking all. And so we don't have to take the heat. We don't have to take responsibility for this. They fucking did this. We're not victims. We're fucking survivors of a crime. But look, we have an opportunity here, and it's generational, but could be ultimately radically intergenerational.
So many things I was thinking about when you were talking about
It's okay.
This place that Gen X women find ourselves in. I often wonder if I love that you position this as a crime, right? Because it has the unweaving of everything that we were taught feels like that. It feels like there was this crime, because when I was, in the late 80s, early 90s, I was all into the story that we were in like a post-feminism era, that we could do anything.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
That,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah,
Third wave feminism. Yep.
Yeah, like I remember reading Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale and thinking, I am so glad I live in a time where that could never happen.
Wah, wah,
Right?
wah, wah.
Yes. And when I was in the fall, I watched the Lilith Fair documentary produced by Dan Levy. God bless him. And I was so emotional watching it. And there's this one scene in particular that really got me. And it was Sheryl Crow talking about, she had been on tour with Lilith. It must have been the 1990 year. And it was the year of Woodstock. Oh, yeah, Woodstock 99 also. And so she went from Lilith Fair to performing at that Woodstock, which we know was an absolute clusterfuck.
Yeah.
And her coming back to like the warmth of the embrace of Lilith Fair. And then it cuts to Sarah talking about, it was that concert that sowed the seeds of something out there is changing.
In a bad way, like the toxicity was encroaching.
Yes. And she knew that Lilith wouldn't be able to continue.
I have a dear friend, my friend Jessica Hopper was one of the producers on that documentary. And we were just talking the other day about all of it and how hard it was actually to ultimately get that documentary done, and how much there was really some resistance to it. But, and I think it's all kind of interrelated, because what you said is really important to think about, right? Like, Riot Girl was happening right in front of me. I was friends with all those people. I was booking shows with those bands. And I was 100 young women who was like, oh yeah, I will be running the world just in a little bit of time. It would never cross my mind there would be any other reason. And if we looked around us, we saw women accessing hormones, being healthy. There was this whole other narrative about like, yeah, we're going to break the glass ceiling. We're going to rip it up. This is our time. Like, finally a woman president. I mean, I want to cry. But anyway, like all these things that were very important. And when I started zooming out and really looking at this hormonal access conversation from a wide top view, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So when the Women's Health Initiative study began, which is, remember, I don't know if your audience is super in the loop on this, but 165,000 women basically drafted by the Golden Girls, that's another story, to, participate in this biggest study ever in the United States. It was huge. That was 93. That was Clinton administration. That was the beginning of the Clinton administration. That was before it all went to complete shit. And it was the year of the woman, I think was 92 or something like that. And there was a female director of the NIH, National Institute of Health in the States. And all these, it was just women. It was a big deal. We were like, it's the future. We all thought, yes. But then you really track it towards that late 90s point. And even if you find there's some press out there, I Googled, and you can Google anybody, there's like a Time magazine article for, I think, 96 maybe, that's called The Estrogen Dilemma. And it's really fascinating. I highly recommend you read it, but it will be in the movie. I will tell you that much. We'll find a way to put that in the movie and
Yes.
in Menopunk's documentary. And it talks about like women are on track to be hormonally optimized in a massive way. The question is like, can they take it till they die? Is this the bottomless well of youth? Is this how they find power forever? How do we stop it? Was part of that narrative, right? How do we stop it? That is sobering AF, right?
Yes,
And then you get to 2001, 9/11, George Bush. We went from being in this sort of idealistic early 90s third wave feminism, break the glass ceiling, riot girl, hurrah, to us combination, feeling this backlash to that. I think the toxicity that was just happening later in the 90s, mixed with then suddenly, as we've just recently experienced, a Republican takeover, which is part of that backlash, which now we're seeing all over again cyclically. But then right after that, on the heels of that, truly, now we have a majority Republican Congress and a lot of things that are different. And suddenly in the States, it wasn't women could do anything. It's how do we get women to stop doing everything? The narrative shifted. And so when you're zoomed out, you see, okay, I talked to Dr. Robert Langer, who was on the initial Women's Health Initiative study, and he talked about being in the room when the report that went to press that ruined everybody's lives with hormone therapy causing breast cancer was brought to all of the researchers on that study, and the blood drained from all of their faces because it was presented to them. They weren't asked to participate in it.
right.
And they were like, you can't put this out. This is going to ruin women's lives. This is going to kill women. They knew exactly what it was. But the people in charge of the Women's Health Initiative, including this guy, Jacques Rousseau, who's still around, heckling at the FDA conferences.
Yes.
He had an agenda. Dr. Avram Blooming talks at one of his lectures about how Jacques Rousseau wanted to, quote, sink HRT. And I think that Congress wanted a positive outcome that they could crow about, a Republican Congress, as to why they spent $1 billion on a study whose actual results reported that it was kind of nil. Like younger women thrived, older women didn't. It was also a cardiovascular study. It was all menopausal. Most women median age were 65 with cardiovascular issues. Like it was already stacked to be
With
fucked
flaws.
from the
Yeah.
jump. So
Yeah.
that was, I think, for me also another revelatory moment where I was like, oh my God, like there's a reason why us 90s ladies are like, it's all full circle. Like we really got cut out, but our parents got cut out the worst. And so they
Yes.
may have really been on trajectory, in 2001, 2002, in their 40s and 50s to absolutely slay it like we are right now. But then they got 40% of women in 2002 were accessing hormones. And after then it was like less
Next
than
to
like 1%
nothing.
or something. So, what I just heard from this awesome writer, Jennifer Weiss-Wolf, who's our This Week of Menopunks podcast, was that actually, if that had never happened in 2002, the projection of where women would be with hormone therapy by 2026, where do you think we would be? I'm just going to quiz you, Lisa.
Where our generation would be?
Now we're on my podcast. So imagine, right, if we were at 23% in 1993 and we're at 40% in 2002 and the shit hit the fan, if the WHI press conference never happened, if they never deviously removed access without our choice to this quality of life saving course of medication, where will we be now? What percentage? What do you think?
60 to 70 because of access issues?
90.
90. Wow.
I mean, we are literally in the opposite situation with under 5% of women and people assigned female at birth accessing hormones. That means we're 95% of people fucking miserable on the couch or not knowing why you can't digest things or why your teeth are falling out, and then instead of 90% ruling the fucking world. That math is real,
having
man.
to start at the bottom. I watched this happen with my grandmother. So I remember when this report came out because my mom went rushing over to her house. Mom, you have got to get off of hormones. You have to do it right now. She did. And now my grandmother is almost 96, lives in a retirement community. But when I walk into that retirement community, it smacks me in the face because it is a sea of frail women. They must have the support of a walker. Their vitality, my grandmother's brain is still, she's incredible, but her body is breaking down around her all the time. And I see it on a mass scale with every woman in the building she lives in. Yeah. And it infuriates me every time because they deserved better.
They deserve so much better. It breaks my heart so much, Lisa. And this is my mom and my stepmom and all the like, we are the ones with these parents. And yes, they're in these homes or they're not, or they're breaking bones, they're falling apart. But look, the 60 somethings bones are breaking now too, and they still have a chance to fix it. Right. And I think that we have to really like process what happened. This is a trauma. This isn't just some random, oops, it's a mistake like Marty fucking McCary and RFK tried to play off. Like, dudes, you fucking assholes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a crime against half the population. And we have to see it as such. And we have to react as such. We have to demand restitution. We have to demand access. We have to demand fucking justice because there is no other way we're going to flip this shit, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And I'm also really wondering about how did it feel? So you took Menopunks and put it on the stage, right? With Menopapalooza, which happened at the end of June.
Menopunkapalooza, yes.
Menopunkapalooza. So how did that feel to have that group of humans in that space, having that experience? I would imagine there was some form of reclamation and healing that was happening in that room.
Reclamation, healing, and this like rare euphoria. And that was something that everybody was losing their fucking minds about because there was just palpable energy in the room. And we had 2 different nights in 2 different places. It was like chills emanating. Everybody had chills all the time. And it's funny because it was a vision that I had particularly uniquely like thinking about all of this because also secretly it was a film shoot for the movie. And so I wanted to create something that I always wanted to exist, but I also needed to have a benefit for the film so we could pay for post-production. Just
Yes.
real talk, you know? And so and I'm a former promoter. So I was like, well, we'll just make it a show and we'll film it. Like that's kind of, everybody films the shows anyways. It's not really that big of a surprise these days. So that's what we did. But, you know, I'm a promoter, but also I'm a curator and I love putting people together. I'm a yenta really at the bottom of all of it. And I just was able to be, I think maybe because of the podcast and the conversation we're having, put this absolutely dream team of people together on the volunteer and my particular team who are unbelievable, to the musicians on the bill who, you know, I tried a lot of different combinations, but ultimately where it landed was perfect. And it wasn't that every band was the most known band. They weren't. But they were all fucking amazing. And I got to put on a bill where if you walked into that room, you did not know what was happening before, but you were into it. The next band was not what you expected. And you were like up to the front and you're just like, bring me there. And that's the way I always book shows was I want to just scoop people up and bring them along into an experience that really gives them something back. That's just the way that I've always ruled as a promoter and as a storyteller. Right. So, it worked. Even the night before, the first night, which was only like 300 or so people at this a much smaller room, you know, it's not just me who's excited about this. It's every single person that's there. And, you know, Teresa Esguera from Built to Spill, the drummer of Built to Spill, she was like, we were backstage. She's like, you know, I was about to put my new estrogen patch on, but should I wait? Should we do that to kick off the festival? And I was like, absolutely. And that's how it began. And, you know, I am deeply passionate about it. So I like to refer to myself casually as an energy witch, whatever that means. And I just have always traded in like bringing enthusiasm to things. It's the way that I am. And I think when I'm passionate about something, and I think this applies to lots of people, that their passion, if it's real, can really infect people in a really wonderful way. And infect is a dark term, but, you know, affect people, let's say, instead of infect. It's not an STD, just FYI. Although, no, PTD, passion, anyway, no, so passion transmission disorder.
Yeah.
So I really like had this dream of kind of stacking it, like doing this incredible panel, having a resource fair. What did that mean? Well, my team helped me really flesh it out in a real way. I didn't do that all myself. I did program all the people on the panel, and that was really time consuming and laborious because I was like, who would be perfect to have this conversation? And we did record it sort of. I wish there were some issues. It could maybe come out. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't even matter because the Guardian quoted it. That's enough, you know? And then that combined with putting comedians even in between the sets or having the one of our Congress people show up and, you know, Mary T. Cherry from the Cherry Bombs, you know, part of it was what we wanted. Part of it was what the universe wanted it to be. Right. And I think people started presenting themselves in this way that was just completely right. It was kismetic. It was magnetic. And from beginning to end, from that fucking estrogen patch slap on the upper butt of Teresa till the very end of Calamity Jane, just melting everybody's faces off. And I read the Bill of Rights. We have a Bill of Rights that we're working on, which is a 10-article Bill of Rights of what we should expect as people as a gender or as an expansive gender that can experience menopause and perimenopause that we've seen nobody put together in this way. So I read that, and Maxine Dexter, talked about our congresswoman, about how she's on hormones and how she thinks we should be demanding better from our politicians and our representatives and leaders. So, I mean, look, it was insane in all of the best ways, beyond my expectation. I don't know. I just put everything I possibly had into it, and I wasn't the only one. Every photographer, every person that was there, every volunteer, the merch people, every single person that was there on our team threw the fuck down. And I think that, when you make a safe space for people, that is like, not only are we talking about menopause and perimenopause, we're talking about how to think about the future of perimenopause and menopause, and how to, make sure that we understand we're in a crisis and we could change the world. How do we do that? That was our entire purview. And that creates a charged environment, because it's not about, how do we protect ourselves against pedophiles, which, let me tell you, is not really a fun conversation to have, but one we probably need to have, really, because look at the world we're living in. But it was about, what can we do to push not just the conversation, but this movement forward so that we can achieve free and fair hormonal access and true reproductive justice for all? Because look, they're not giving us our rights back very quickly. It's like they keep taking them away more and more. And this is a crisis. And I know it's like we have the abortion pill and whatever, but like, dudes, it's all of our problems, every single thing.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes.
It was fun.
And
The answer is it was fun. It was really fun. I loved it. I want to do it all over the time, all over the place, all of the time. But I first have to make a movie and finish the season of the podcast. But yes.
Well, fun also is what we need, right? And I think it's something that we are uniquely positioned to be able to do, is to bring the joy to the resistance. Right?
That is so, so important, Lisa. And I think it gets really underplayed because we are in a time of extraordinary collective trauma. And we have to see it as such. And it's just the newest form of collective trauma that we're experiencing. And if you think about the WHI and having this misinformation that hormone therapy causes breast cancer seeded into our culture, into our society for over 24 years, that just amplified that trauma and made it worse for innumerable amounts of women. I mean, you mentioned this one nursing home with 100 or so women who are all frail with active minds. It's fucking tragic, right? That's one of thousands of a booming industry that cropped up to prey on women with hormonal deficiency if you really zoom the fuck out. Okay, that's a problem. Additionally, all of the massive industries of pharmaceuticals and not just wellness, whatever that is, giving us, being able to say that they're working better than hormones because hormones are going to cause cancer. So what is better than hormones? It can be almost anything. So we've just been like hoodwinked from the jump on all of this. And we've got to wrestle it back and take the narrative back, reframe it so that we can take it as a win and like zoom forward.
Yes. And we are doing it in different ways. A friend of mine went to visit my dad when he was living in a retirement community. And we were walking through the hall and she was looking at the names beside the doors, right? So it's like the names you would expect at this point. She looked at me and she's like, how long do you think it's going to be before we start seeing Ashley and Jessica and Tiffany on these nameplates? So and I had this moment of, my initial response was never, because I cannot see anyone from Gen X aging and going down like that. And it's no shade on the generations who came before us. Like it's not that. It's just, it is inherently not who we are.
Totally. 100%. I think that we right now, I agree, and we don't want that, and we are headed right towards it if we don't fucking wake up. And so that's the real problem we're in. That's the crisis we're in. That is the tragedy that we're living right at this moment. They wedged open the door to fascism through taking away hormone therapy. And if you don't believe it, listen to the Menopunks podcast or your podcast or do the research, because that's one way they got in, by disabling and disempowering strategically, systematically half the fucking population. And when half the population are aging ungracefully in nursing homes that could have been running the government, I bet Pelosi is on hormones. Let me tell you right now, there's some women, the ones that have stuck and they're still in Congress. Like, I want to report, like Pelosi kind of drives me crazy, but they're just saying we have a real chance to right our ship before we go down, because that's really what we are poised to do. And I really felt like at least what I could bring to the table is just someone who happens to have editing skills and radio skills and music skills and conversation skills and interviewing skills and blah, blah, blah. Just like you, I felt like, well, I can bring the conversations that I'm having to everybody, because we know, Lisa, that in stories are power. Stories are the power. By talking, by sharing, this is how women and matriarchies in the millennia have succeeded and ultimately kept the earth going. So maybe it's through rock stars this time. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's lots of influencers, people out in there. I mean, there's lots of podcasts. I think podcasting is also another incredibly important. I didn't even know when I started this podcast that it would matter at all. And it's wild to me that it's mattering. But it makes kind of sense also, because just like music, it's very hard to censor a podcast, and you don't really have to. And so just like music, podcasts, there's no, it's a real, sometimes an immediate expression versus, something highly produced or AI'd or whatever that could be manipulated one way or the other.
Yes. So where are we at with Menopunks? What can we do to support it, to make sure that all of this powerful storytelling makes its way out into the universe?
Thanks, Lisa. Multiple things. We're completely slutty on social media, so get up on that when you can. It's, Menopunks at Instagram. We were kicked off of TikTok when Larry Ellison took it over, because we were very ardently pro-trans rights. And I think it was some of the content we had put up that got us kicked off, which bums me out. So don't look for us there unless we pop up. It could happen again. We are, subscribe to the podcast, Menopunks podcast. In the film itself, we are fundraising for post-production right now. So you can go to our website. There's a button to click if you want to just give us some money via PayPal. You can buy merch, which is all just directly funds everything that we're doing with the film and the podcast. And additionally, if you really are somebody that wants to not necessarily invest, but really give a significant amount, we have an ability to take tax-deductible donations. So if somebody is really like, I have money that I can give away to charitable things, we can take that money and turn it into activism. So if you are able to donate in any way, please email at info@menopunks.com. And just, I just encourage people to, regardless of money, you can amplify this movement by just, number one, sharing your story with them, period. Regardless of us. B, if you do like what we're doing, if you do want to hear rock stars' tales and really cool, famous, rad doctors talk about their own experiences and what they're kind of going for, please listen to the podcast and check it out and tell your friends. Word of mouth. What do we say? One of our early taglines was from a whisper to a scream, or from a whisper network to a scream. And we want people to fucking rage for this, because it's within our rage that I think lies the answer.
Yeah. And it is a really great way to take the rage that we're feeling, to feel it and to channel it. I know Alanis Morissette has been doing a lot of really interesting conversation around
I'm trying to get her.
Yes.
I'm trying. This might help. Alanis, if you're listening to this awesome Canadian podcast that Menopunks is on with Lisa, please, we'd love to talk to you. We really, really are curious about your unfiltered thoughts regarding menopause, perimenopause, the music business, and everything else. We think you're cool as shit. You've been through it all, and we have questions.
Yes. So do I. Alanis, let's talk. Let's all of us talk together.
All right, so we both want you. Just, you don't have to decide. It's not Sophie's choice. You can have us both. It's fine.
Yeah, God, I know. It's just so incredible that she is taking all of our collective rage and being able to articulate it in this way about how powerful our rage is when we direct it.
Absolutely.
And to create change.
Well, and that's exactly our mission as well. I call it uncaging the rage.
Yes. Yes.
Because I also, it can burn a hole in us in a bad way. So I think that, things like cancer is my own hippie thing. But, if you really
No.
just bury that anger within you and don't express it and feel joy to balance it out, you're not going to be healthy. You're not going to be happy. Your life's going to suck. So yeah, uncage the rage. Menopunks, we're here to absolutely create like a fucking soaker spray of feminism and action. So you can like fill yourself into the tank of our soaker spray gun. And, the rage just turns into excellent glue to stop the system of bullshit.
Yes.
This is a terrible analogy. I do these. I can't help it. ADHD. There it is.
The visual of it is fantastic.
Anywho.
Alicia, thank you so much for this really cathartic and joyful hour. I have appreciated your wisdom and your time so much. And for listeners, all of the Menopunks contact information and the ways that you can support them will be in the show notes. So make sure you check it out.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Bye.
Electricast.
Thank you for hanging out with me on Transforming 45. If you laughed, nodded, or had an oh wow moment, hit follow and share it with your favorite midlife human. Find me on Instagram @LBoat and keep those transformations coming.